Good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Majeska, and welcome to the Navient Business Process Automation webinar series, Accelerate Accounts Payable Processing. The lines have been muted this morning, and the webinar is being recorded, and a link will be distributed by email after the webinar. I'm going to keep the agenda simple today and keep our focus on why, who, what, and how. So we're going to start with typical accounts payable issues and concerns, who is OnBase, and we'll spend the majority of our time on automation best practices, and finally spend a little bit of time on how to move forward. So let's start with, what are the issues and concerns? Why are your peers doing this? And it really boils down to costs. Storage costs, retrieval costs, lost invoices, these all relate to the costs associated with managing physical invoice assets. And once you have those assets, you need to process them. So there's manual and paper work effort, manual data entry, productivity costs as invoice volumes increase, significant time spent following up with approvers on their exceptions and GL coding, late and duplicate payments, application switching out of the ERP. All of these are your processing costs. And then finally, you need visibility to those processes to improve controls and compliance, to do your reporting, even vendor relationships, which are all your management costs. And these costs are not going away on their own or anytime soon. In fact, 39% of you report that your invoice volumes are increasing up to 10% in the past year, and 24% report an increase greater than 10%. 50% of your invoices are still arriving by paper, and a third are arriving via email. And regardless of the size of your organization, finance teams are spending about 50% of their time processing transactions. And almost 50% of you believe that invoice processing will become more complex over the next 2 years. So, who is OnBase? Why do you care? And what makes it different? This is not, I'm going to keep this short, but this is not a sales pitch. Rather, I want to take a brief minute to share some context for discussions that are going to follow. So literally, if you did a Google search, AP automation solutions, there are about 2.1 million results. There is so much information out there that all looks and sounds the same. And maybe that's why you're attending this webinar today. And as the leaders in this industry continue to compress, we're very proud that OnBase is recognized by analysts like Gartner as one of only a few leader options in the industry, and the only leader. In fact, let me repeat that. It's the only leader with one single database platform. And that is important for what we're going to be talking about. OnBase is not a niche point solution just for accounts payable automation. OnBase is a single enterprise content services platform with enterprise scalability, rather than having these disparate silos of content or single solutions to automate a single process that require application switching. All of the content that we're going to be talking about today and processes, the documents, the images, the emails, disparate data, it can all be captured and OCR'd, processed, stored, secured, integrated, and shared internally and externally within OnBase. AP tends to be one of the most common initial uses of OnBase with our customers, but then ultimately it's leveraged strategically throughout the organization. And that's another differentiator for AP, because accounts payable is definitely more than just invoices. This is different than most of the point and niche solutions out there that are only managing invoices or that invoice approval process. There is a lot of unstructured content and disparate data related to the procure to pay cycle that includes managing that relating to accounts payable. And OnBase manages all of that. So things like canceled checks, purchase orders, packing slips, remittance, vendor management content like contract information, incident report, credit reports. Which now brings us to what? What are AP's options for automation and best practices? We have found that automation means different things to different organizations. So rather than dictating a specific process, OnBase provides a means to focus on the right process and your staff interactions based on what your objectives are for your organization. Bottom line is you have options. And this graph, so some of you may have seen this before, but this illustrates 3 of the most common approaches or stages to accounts payable automation. That first stage, stage 1, is really focused on late capture. In essence, you're doing the same processes that you're doing today, perhaps with some manual incremental improvements. You're still manually routing things around. You're still receiving paper. Maybe emails are manually ad hoc being routed for approvals, and you're manually entering that data, transaction data, into your ERP. And at the end of that process, late capture, now you are ingesting that content into OnBase. And there is value to that. There's value to reduce storage costs, retrieval costs, audit costs, searchability, maybe even some reporting after the fact. But most of our customers tend towards stage 2. And this is really shifting the capture of that content from the end of the process to the beginning, hence its early capture. The value of that is by capturing it earlier, we can automate processes. We can automate where that's going, approvals, exceptions, timers, escalations. We can run reports. We may still be doing some keying from image, manual keying, but we can automate things like verifications and posting and reporting. And then stage 3 is really enhancing early capture with optical character recognition. And by adding OCR, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we can further automate workflows and data validations and verifications and really achieve straight-through processing from capture to automated posting for that content and significantly driving down that cost per transaction. So, what are our best practices? We're going to cover 5 of them this morning. And the first one is this stage 2 that we just talked about, early capture and process automation. In fact, about 39% of you report this level, this medium level of automation. Now, the first part of that is scanning or electronically capturing that content as early as possible. And the second part is controlling the processes through workflow. So here's an example of what we're talking about. That first step, early capture, that paper is either scanned or those emails or faxes are automatically ingested. Those emails could be going into an attended email box where someone's checking it, or a fully automated unattended email box. But essentially, you're capturing that into OnBase, and that increases your visibility and your process controls. It eliminates lost or damaged documents, and it also eliminates intercompany routing or courier expenses. Once that is captured into OnBase, now we can automate that process through workflow. So it can go to an AP specialist or directly out to those approvers because we've standardized business rules and tasks. All of those non-value added tasks, routing things around manually, can now be automated. Those approvals and exceptions and schedule of authority, delegation of authority, improving processing speed and accuracy. We can even automate the data capture and automated posting or batch processing of that data to your ERP through automation. And the value of this is all very, very real. Early capture and automation provides the ability to change invoice processing times from an industry average of about 9 days, past best in class of about 4 days, to with OnBase about 4 hours on average. Early payment discount capture rates are also increased. Industry averages are about 43%, best in class is about 66%, but with OnBase automation, it's about 75%, and the almighty invoice cost per invoice can be reduced from an industry average of about $10 per invoice to $4 best in class to about $2 with OnBase. So now let's talk about number 2 best practice, integration. Integration is a performance advantage, and about 72% of you are using some type of integration for either data posting or transparent user retrieval and interaction directly from your ERP. Essentially, integration can enable new functionalities. It can provide quick retrieval of that invoice or related content directly from your ERP screen. It can initiate workflow engagement or electronic forms. Essentially, it's providing that user experience to be more intuitive for your processors. So this integration can be done for your ERP system, your email systems for approvers and users, mobile devices, and even your vendors through web portals. Here's an integrated SAP example. This is just one of many OnBase examples of certified API level integration options that we have. For those of you familiar with SAP, or perhaps those of you not familiar with SAP, on the top left, there is an attachment list button. Once that is clicked, an attachment list, this is all SAP, opens up, and now we can see that OnBase content. So the link is here in SAP, but the content is being stored in OnBase. In this case, this could be one, or there could be many documents here. This is showing a link to an OnBase Miro transaction, which is a PO transaction, And by clicking on that, we now see the retrieval of that invoice without leaving that SAP screen. Alternatively, OnBase has other tools like OnBase Application Enabler. This provides a simplified approach with absolutely no modification, no custom coding, no scripting to the ERP, but it's no less sophisticated. This also provides quick retrieval of content from the ERP. We can search, we can retrieve related documents, initiate workflow in electronic forms, and retrieval can be invoked a few different ways. It can either be done through a click on a field on the ERP screen, or a keyboard combination that doesn't interfere with the ERP functionality, like a Shift F1. Or we can embed a screen link or a button directly on the screen. Or the other example here is we can put a floating tile on that ERP screen, again, non-programmatically. This approach, the floating tile, if you take your mouse and hover over that tile, it will show the documents, so very intuitive for the user, that are available for retrieval. By then clicking on that document to retrieve, you're not leaving that ERP experience, but you're directly seeing that document image or related documents. Once that image is open, and this is OnBase, you can now retrieve and view document history, or even view status and workflow history of that transaction. Here's another example focused on Outlook. Notice the OnBase ribbon bar on the top. This is a simple add-in to your user's Outlook experience where they can do many things like retrieval, access file cabinets, upload content, engage with workflow, fill out electronic forms, and even scan. All of these common functions are available right to those users directly from Outlook. In this example, an approver receives an automated notification and they open that email. Once that email is opened, it can either contain a link to redirect them back to OnBase, or we can intuitively embed an OnBase task pane within the email. At the bottom of this task pane is a button to show the primary item or any related items, and then they can view that item without leaving Outlook. And then they can act on those tasks to either approve or reject, including an electronic simple-to-use form for any required GL coding or exception management before moving on. OnBase can also be extended to provide users remote approval through their familiar mobile devices. Here's an example of an OnBase Android app. From the main screen, they can do searches and engage with workflow, enter new forms, upload new content. By going to workflow, I can now see what's in my queue. There's a non-PO invoice. By tapping on that, I can actually see the transaction data, the OnBase keywords, or perhaps notes or related documents. I can also actually view the primary document and see the invoice and pinch and zoom to see the details of that. I can fill out my GL coding form, and then I can execute my tasks as appropriate. And finally, OnBase can also be extended to provide content externally to your website, providing a vendor portal for self-service. We can force a login that's required, and then depending on what you want to share, we can extend status dashboards, invoice searches, or even the ability to upload invoices directly to your OnBase automation process. Moving on to best practices number 3, reducing and eliminating manual entry. There are many, many good OnBase approaches to reducing data entry. Things like application enabler screen scraping, so there's no duplicate entry, there's autofills, and there's data syncs. And about 69% of you are using some combination of that or OCR. But what I want to do this morning is I want to focus on significantly reducing or eliminating data entry with automated capture, which represents about 19% using this high automation of OCR, and that continues to grow every year. That's stage 3. Because remember, 83% of your invoices are still received by paper or email. And this is really a form, advanced OCR is really a form of AI, rapidly improving productivity through this intelligent extraction and data validation. So, what is OCR? For those of you not familiar, OCR is optical character recognition that allows for the ability to read and extract machine print. Handwriting is an option, but much less reliable, especially for unstructured documents like invoices or packing slips. So essentially, without OCR, your processes, if you're doing that today, are manual. Things like document separation when those invoices arrive, those paper invoices or even emails. So you might have to manually separate them or process single versus multi-page separately, inserting barcode separators. You might have to classify documents separately, invoices versus packing slips, manually sorting them and manually keying what is that document type, and then finally manually entering that transaction data into your ERP. But with OCR, those tasks, separation tasks, classification tasks, and extraction tasks are done with the OCR tool to do that in an automated way, including the ability to do automated postings rather than the entry of data at the end of that process. There are many, many types of OCR out there in the market. We could have similarly Googled OCR and probably gotten a similar millions of hits on that as well. Most of them are zonal template-based OCR, and that is not what we're talking about today. Template or zonal-based OCR requires the users or the administrators to set up templates or zones where that OCR data is extracted for every different scenario. Look in these XY type of coordinates. An intelligent or advanced OCR is completely different, because what we're dealing with, especially in accounts payable, is semi-structured or completely unstructured document with data in unpredictable locations, because all vendor invoices are not standard formats. OnBase has various industry-leading tools to automate OCR, including template or predictable-based, which is OnBase Advanced Capture. Again, we're not going to talk about that today. Rather, we're going to focus more towards OnBase ICAP, Intelligent Capture for AP, which is no templates and is focused on extracting and validating header and footer information, or the industry-leading Brainware tool, which is the more sophisticated intelligent AI type of OCR with no templates and really is able to extract not just header footer, but also all of that line item detail to be extracted and validated. So where does OCR fit into this process? So remember this diagram, we talked about it earlier, early capture and process automation, stage 2. With OCR, processors become exception handlers. After capture, so after those invoices, paper or email or fax are ingested, OCR now automatically extracts and validates that data and passes it to workflow. That automated data is validated. Business procurement approvals and exceptions can become more automated through things like a rules engine, schedule of authority, or delegation. AP now becomes exception managers, and that posting can be automated if all of those rules are met. If you remember this benchmark we shared earlier too, with early capture and workflow, invoice processing costs were about $2 per invoice. With early capture, workflow, and now OCR, processing costs drop further to less than about $1 per invoice. I want to give you an example of how this works. So here's an example of intelligent OCR. OnBase then interrogates and extracts the transaction data, all without templates, assigns those as keywords, and now that data is available for potential validation. And whether you have lots of transactions or multiple ERPs, OnBase and Brainware have the ability to locate and validate PO data and line item detail to validate the vendor transaction data back to the PO and automatically post that content. Here's an actual example of a Brainware screen. On the top left, OnBase Brainware has classified the invoice type as a non-PO. It's extracted the data without templates and has validated data against the ERP vendor master as DATAs. This is an example of an invoice that the invoice processor would never see. It would actually be captured, extracted, validated, and then posted. Here's another example, classified as a PO invoice. Again, extracted without templates, validated data against the ERP vendor master, a software house, including all of the line item detail. Again, if this processes, if it meets all of your business rules and validates, this could also go from capture, extraction, validate, to automated posting with no human intervention. I've paused it in this example. This is a Starbucks invoice example. While it's been classified as a non-PO, verification is required because it turns out this is out of balance. In fact, that's notified on the bottom. It says total amount does not match the sum of the subtotal, freight, and tax amounts because it turns out freight came through as 0. So now the verifier, the user in AP, can enter that freight either by a click of the field that's been extracted or by data entry, and that verification is now cleared and is ready to be posted. In this example, that would be one field of human intervention, not even close to the 200 fields or 1,000 plus keystrokes that would have been manually required without OCR. As an example, OCR, similar to buying a car, you have options. You go to your local dealer, they may have a car you're looking for on their lot, they have it in red, they have a blue one, they have a gray one, they come pre-configured the way the dealer ordered it. You might be able to make some small adjustments like add floor mats, and you get the benefit of driving home a really nice new car quickly and perhaps with some dealer incentives from a pricing standpoint. Or you could be that person who really wants that black one with racing stripes and LED headlights and a sunroof. So you order the more sophisticated option and it's configured exactly the way you want it. Might take a little longer, but you're going to get exactly what you want. How does this relate? Well, OCR options are similar. In a traditional OCR deployment, similar to Brainware or iCap, it's like ordering and configuring the exact car you want. It may include line item detail extraction or perhaps header level only extraction. Data validation in your processes might be complex with various exceptions and posting requirements that require it to be configured. This is traditionally how Brainware and iCap are deployed, hence the need for a planning engagement to map out those processes and integrations, and then the actual implementation and configuration. Alternatively, we know that some of you like the option on the left. You want to keep it simple. You want to start with what's on the lot and maybe make modifications later down the road as a future phase. You can initially implement this faster because it's pre-configured. And in the right situation, this is why Navient has developed a framework. Now, this is new. Pre-configured, it leverages ICAP, so OnBase Intelligent Capture for Accounts Payable, for header, footer, detail only, and it's bundled with that ICAP OCR tool, mailbox importer, fax integration, interactive data capture, and reporting dashboards. If you'd like more information on the Navient AP automation framework for ICAP, please contact your Navient account executive. Now let's move on to best practices number 4, reporting. Simply put, you can't manage what you don't measure. And about 50% of you are using some type of metric to measure performance, which is great. So let's talk about reporting and metrics because it's important. OnBase has many reporting options, report services or reporting dashboards in this example. Reporting dashboards provides a dynamic, real-time view of processing metrics through a variety of graphical formats, including things like charts and graphs, scorecards, maps, and more. Dashboards provides the ability to actually create and share these dashboards by users themselves, or even export that data to Excel. OnBase dashboards do not come pre-configured, but that's easy, it's point and click, and Navient has developed an available bundle of standard dashboards which are free to all Navient SLA customers. If you'd like more information on dashboards or that available bundle, also please reach out and contact your Navient account executive. In this example, we show a couple of different panes for invoice process status. In the middle, on the right, invoice exception volumes, and on the bottom, the status of invoices by vendor. Here's another dashboard example of who is processing how much work and how long it's taking them. In the middle, average time in queue by user. On the right, work performance by user. Or on the bottom, even the raw detail, time in queue by document, which a user could then click on and dynamically view the document in history right from that hit list. And as you can see from the top of the screen, you can actually have multiple dashboards open at the same time. Now finally, let's talk about best practices number 5, consolidating your disparate data. Most respondents, about 87% of you, are still using paper and spreadsheets and Access databases to kind of wrangle in and track all of this unstructured data that doesn't fit neatly into your ERP. Don't get me wrong, master data belongs in your ERP, your vendor master, but all too common, we see it in almost every organization, there is all of this other miscellaneous data that must be tracked, and it's maintained in Excel spreadsheets and Access database. bases or even paper files and file folders in different locations. And this is common because the ERP is either not set up to manage all of this additional disparate information, additional contacts, special terms, performance issues, reviews, or maybe perhaps because different people are using different systems. There's lots of reasons, but it tends to be all over the place. And the value of this centralized view, this consolidation of this disparate data, is that all information is now accessible for a 360-degree view of that relationship. This is where OnBase Case Management comes in, also known as WorkView. It is a fully integrated capability within the OnBase platform that centralizes this disparate data and checklists in one place. Here's an example of OnBase vendor management with WorkView. If you look at the top, we have that same familiar OnBase ribbon bar. Then we have search filters on the left. We have search criteria in the middle, like vendor name or a text search. And on the right, we have our results based on that criteria. By clicking on this one result, Office Supply Warehouse, we can now view the vendor details. There are multiple tab options below the ribbon, and the first one here is General Information. Data on this screen could be things like vendor name and address, primary contact, and other overview type information. Moving to the right, and the tab for contracts, now we can see things like contract details or contract term, even links to the actual contracts, because this is all OnBase and we're storing discrete data and document-centric information, and we can process all of that. The next tab is performance, the ability to track vendor performance and satisfaction. Now this could be manually entered and checked, or this could be actually auto-populated from an OnBase electronic form. Here's a tab example for additional vendor contacts, and here's a tab for notes and tasks. So essentially a vendor-specific CRM to track interactions, notes, and checklists. And similar to the reporting tool that we just discussed, all of this data is now available and visible through OnBase and OnBase dashboards. So we can see things like contracts by type, contract status, and even status by staff. So we've covered a lot this morning. As we wrap up this webinar, we've now reached the how. What are my next steps? How do I move forward? In its simplest terms, there are two guiding recommendations. The first is planning. Planning is critical. Look at and understand your current state and why you're doing it, but don't model your future state after your current state. This is the perfect opportunity to make those improvements. Also, as you're reviewing your current and future state, look at process first. Review your process and understand what you want that future process state to be, and consider your user engagements each step of the way. And finally, then look at technology. Technology interactions and data is important. Secondly, engage and explore. As we talked about, there is a lot of noise out there. There are 2.1 million choices according to Google, and there is no need to recreate the wheel. There are a lot of quality resources, including quality people that have done this before, such as Navient. We would be more than happy to explore and engage, talk about planning. We can either help you with the full plan, or we can come in and just help validate your plan. Or implementation. We can assist with the entire implementation, or we can collaborate with you and take certain tasks that you're not comfortable with. Again, we've done this before and we would be happy to help. Also, there's a great extent of quality digital content available from places like Navient's website, navient.com. Under Solutions, there are departmental solutions around accounting and finance, and specifically much, if not more, of the content around accounts payable invoice processing. If you're already an OnBase customer, there are solutions available through the OnBase community, and there's also resources available through the OnBase try.onbase.com site. This is essentially an OnBase sandbox that you can try without worrying about breaking it. And then finally, mark your calendars if you haven't already. The Navient Annual Customer Summit is in October 15th and 16th in Madison this year. This is an amazing two-day event for customers and invited guests to experience, learn, and connect with each other. And with that, I thank you. We're right at our 30 minutes. Again, my name is Ed Majeska. Please feel free to call or email me directly with any questions, and I thank you for your time this morning.